All right, welcome to episode 2 of the O2 Dropcast, where if we don't talk about it, you shouldn't care about it. With us today, first of all, this is a Arizona Eternal Magic podcast. With us today, we have the closest thing in this room to a gorilla, Mr. Daniel Espinoza. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing good, man. And we have our local star here from the Arizona Eternal Magic series, Nick Cowley. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Cool. Just a little intro here. Nick Cowley is probably one of, if not the best D&T player in Arizona. Can you think of anybody better?
There's some good players, but Nick has been playing it for a long time, so I think he's one of the top, if not the best.
Who else plays D&T, though?
I know Eddie Cadil used to play it,
Anthony.
and Riyad Morsali.
Yeah.
Anthony Rivera plays whatever. He just plays all kinds of random shit every week. So
He's been on D&T lately, though.
Nick's been pretty consistent with it.
Yeah. Well, welcome to everybody out there who's listening to this. We're going to be talking, and again, this podcast is mainly for the people here in Arizona. We have an awesome legacy community, and this is mainly for them. And if you're outside of Arizona and you're listening to this, welcome as well. We're going to talk a little bit about the SCG event, some decks, answer some questions. Got a lot of good stuff here on the radar here today, but we did go to 2 out of 3 of us here in this room today went to SCG Vegas, and I did pretty shit. I did very poorly. Nick, how did you do?
Yeah, not too well. Certainly not as good as the second place finish at the 2018 Legacy Masters event, which was a couple weeks ago, and that was a lot of fun. Vegas didn't go as well, which, oh well, no big deal.
Did you guys play the teams event, or did you guys just play in the Legacy Classic?
So I didn't do either one of those. I just played some side events on, what was it, Saturday?
Yeah, Saturday.
Yeah, side events on Saturday, and was having a little bit too much fun in Vegas Saturday night, and I missed. We had to check out of the hotel at 11, and the classic started at 10, so just chose not to do that because I didn't want to have to drive back in the dark. But I scrubbed out pretty hard.
What were you on?
I was on Grixis Control, and I was went 1-3 in the first event, and then 2-2 in the second event.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it was not a good day for me. It was not a good day.
And how'd you do, Nick?
Yeah, same kind of deal. I was around 2-2 in a lot of the side events, and some mistakes. I remember one of the main mistakes was I was on a Grixis Control as well, like Zach was, and my matchup was against Sneak and Show, and I had lost game 1 as he had top decked a Intuition into Cunning Wish into Firemind's Foresight and Omniscience, and that was it. And then game 2, I had a nice lock with Pithy Needle on board, stopping a sneak attack, and I had Force Will backup and negate. And then my opponent played a Cunning Wish to go grab something out of his board, and I was like, well, I have double counter magic backup. What's the worst that can happen? I think I'll hold this and wait, force him to use more resources, spend more mana, and then we'll just counter whatever he's going to use. And then we got blown out by the Wipe Away, which, if you don't know, Wipe Away is bounce target permanent with split second. So that was kind of devastating because then we got punished, and you learn from your mistakes, right? So the Pithy Needle got bounced, and then Emrakul immediately followed, and annihilations happened.
He already had the sneak attack out?
Yeah, he had the sneak attack on board, but the Pithy Needle was holding everything at bay, and then the Wipe Away let it free.
I mean, if it was Echoing Truth, you would have been fine.
Yeah.
That's why they play Wipe Away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wipe Away is the only thing that he could have grabbed. So, I guess you live and learn, man.
I was running through lists in my head because, Chris, Celaya, he plays it here in the Valley. And I was thinking, okay, a Braid, that's an option. Maybe some other artifact getter it or other that would just get rid of the Pithy Needle. But, oh well, Wipe Away got me.
Yeah, and then what's the other one? What's the one Wipe Away that they run that it counters a...
Trickbind?
Trickbind, is that the one with split second too that counters an activated ability?
Well, I don't know if it's split second, but you cannot activate that ability again this turn.
Okay, but it's not split second.
No, it's like a weird stifle, but it just makes it to where you cannot. So you stifle it with the Trickbind, and then they can't reactivate it that turn.
Gotcha.
So it just prevents them from reactivating sneak attack.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that in lists too. I think I got blown out by that a couple years ago. Same thing, like they were going to Cunning Wish, and I was like, nah, whatever. And then they grabbed that and blew me out somehow. Can't remember, but I've seen that one too. That one always, like, it's because it's basically a stifle, except better, and it costs, I think it costs two.
One more.
Yeah, it costs one generic more. Yeah, that one's pretty good. I played in the event, and so I played Grixis Control in both of them. Let's see if I can remember what I played against. So when I went 2-2, I went against a Jund Nickfit that was running Sneak Attack and
Yeah, I saw that. That was pretty spicy. He had like an Inferno
weird.
Titan.
Yeah, Inferno Titan. And luckily I saw a lot of Thoughtseize, Snapcaster Thougtseize action, and I got rid of his Inferno Titan and hemmed him a couple times. So then I found a clock and finished him off. But he ramped me into a Jace one of the games. I turned 2 played a Jace because of
the Veteran Explorer.
Because of the Veteran Explorer, yeah. So that was really cool. I liked ramping into a Jace, man.
It's like playing Vintage when you get the turn 1, turn 2 Jace. Doesn't have it on Legacy.
Yeah, unless your opponent ramps you into it.
Yeah.
There's I think there's like a bug Nick fit. A buddy Joseph plays that. I mean, you guys know Joseph, yeah.
Yeah.
So he plays that, and he plays Jace, and I think the big Nissa and stuff in there. But yeah, so one of the games, Nick fit, that was a pretty easy win. I 2-0'd that guy, and then I was on the mirror here against Nick.
Yep.
And that was was that 2-0 or 2-1?
I think you got I think you got a 2-0. I don't think things were breaking my way that time. Plus, it's always disappointing to travel to a different city, a different state, and then you have to cannibalize your own legacy meta by playing against your friends. That's never any fun.
Yeah, but the side events were pretty good. They were all fired with like 12 to like 20 people somewhere in there on Saturday, because I think most people were still playing in the main event at that point. And then the Classic had a couple hundred people, I think, somewhere around there.
Probably. I know Tash, David, and Jesse were all playing in it. So.
And David messaged me. He got 26th playing Ant. He went 4-3.
And actually, so the winner, CJ Oliver, I believe his name is, he's actually one of Frankie Rodriguez's buddies. I met him a couple years ago I met him at Eternal Weekend 2 years ago. And he took down the tournament with Sneak Attack or Sneak Show.
There was a lot of Sneak and Show in that room. I was surprised there was that much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't see any of that tournament because I was already, pretty much on the road at that time. But I would have liked to play in that. But I think I probably would have just scrubbed out. Like I would have spent $40 just
and O2 drop.
Yeah, just O2 drop. Like seriously, yeah. I was not doing too well with Grixis Control, and it made me kind of think of maybe some other, decks to play. But I know you played D&T, and you took that to the Masters. That was a couple weeks ago now.
Yeah, it was like a week prior to the Vegas event, and that was pretty fun. Daniel here and myself, we were both in the Masters event, which for anyone who doesn't know or isn't familiar with it, either in Arizona or elsewhere, we have a great legacy scene here, and it's really sweet because if you're familiar with like SCG events, for example, you play in tournaments and you accumulate points, and at the end of the year, the leaders with the most points or people who have won specific tournaments are qualified, and then we take the top 16 players to battle it out in either November or December. So it's a really good time to keep Eternal Magic going strong, and it's really fun to then have really high level Magic at the end of the year with good players. So that was a blast, to play in that.
Yeah, the top 16. It's an invitational at the Masters at the end of the year, so you don't have to pay anything because you've worked hard the entire year to make it to the Masters. It's a big deal here in Arizona. And you ended up second at that. Yeah,
I had a good run. Ended up in second place. Made it to the finals. Sadly, came up a little short, so that was a bit of a bummer. But overall, played really tight. Thought through a lot of my lines and stuff, and didn't at least make any critical mistakes that I can see that cost me a game or punted it away.
That's good.
So that was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels good to play tight and be rewarded, and then at least at the end of the day when you get second and not first, you can look back and say, wow, I really played well that day. Let's talk about your deck choice a little bit. So you brought D&T, which is one of your all-stars.
Right. Yeah, I have a lot of practice with the deck, so I was definitely leaning towards either that or Grixis Control or Miracles. You know, I've been kind of going through the three, doing a lot of testing online, and it's kind of hard sometimes to test for your local meta when you're then playing online because, you know, people online are usually playing tiered decks. They want things that have results, really tried and true and proven, and your local meta is always going to be different for many reasons. People have pet decks, people have budget restrictions, people have, you know, time restrictions. They don't want to maybe invest that much time into learning a new deck. So that was a tough decision, but ultimately I came down to choosing D&T based upon what I expected other people to play. I put 4-color control and 4-color loam, you know, whatever you want to call it exactly, as a potential contender for taking down the Masters again, because that was what won last year. Killian, our previous champion of 2017, was on that. And I had expected at least a few players from the Tucson, Sierra Vista area down there to be on that. And there's also some, you know, some mono red prison, some big Eldrazi, and D&T felt like something that I had at least some tools for every matchup, which was nice compared to being on Grixis Control and then running into, you know, some people over here that play Turbo Depths and then getting smashed. You know, that's not kind of what I wanted to be on. So
yeah, let's put a flag there. So that the Turbo Depths D&T matchup. Mm-hmm. How is that? How is that for both sides over here?
So it's funny you mentioned that because I actually got paired against Nick round 1, and Nick's always a die roll for me because he's either on D&T or he's on Grixis. So it's either a good match or a not so great match. This time Nick prevailed in game 1. I mean, obviously it's not an easy match for the Dark Depths player. And I made a bold claim at someone's birthday a couple months ago with Nick after having a few drinks, and I said that, you know, I was pretty confident in the matchup, and I feel like I can, you know, I'm 50-50 against it because I've just been playing against D&T.
Really?
I don't enjoy sitting across from it, but like
better or worse than Miracles. Oh,
so any deck that has deck manipulation, like card draw, is significantly worse because they can dig for their swords, they can dig for everything.
Okay,
D&T is playing a somewhat fair game, right? Yeah. But they also have like the swords and the Karakas and the Wastelands and stuff.
Okay.
But
so they're 1-for-1 in you, and so D&T's a little bit easier because it's playing kind of on your level.
Yeah. So
well, I mean, you got both decks have a little bit of tutoring, but you're not getting a whole lot of card advantage by drawing cards through predict.
Correct.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, the white decks with blue definitely a tier above, and D&T is never an easy match. But I think I'm pretty confident in my abilities against it and like the strategy and you know how to handle the matchup. And even when
is the 50-50, I want to stop you there. Is that because that's how you feel the match is, or is that based off of your actual
based off my experience? Like, I don't think it's a great matchup, really? But I feel like I've played it enough and I've lost against it enough to where I can navigate the matchup pretty well.
50-50 with wins and losses.
I've broken pretty even. Like, I played against it a lot on Moto because I think it was a cheap deck on Moto for a while.
Yeah.
And like, I've just grinded out. I mean, and you have key cards, right? Like Pithing Needle is an all-star in the matchup, and it's a Safekeeper as well.
Okay.
Like, I mean, in Nick and I's games, like there were 3 close games, and I think I took game 1, which is huge. And there was a time when I duressed him, and I think he had Wasteland, Swords, and like a Karakas. So like his hand was pretty good.
Yeah.
But I was able to get there.
All right.
Game 2 was crazy.
Yeah, game 2 was real good.
So Nick, there was an early turn where I think I thought seized him, and I took a Stoneforge, and he had Batterskull and some other stuff. I think he had 2 swords, and so I couldn't take the swords because he has 2. So I took the Stoneforge so he couldn't get the Batterskull out, right? Okay. It ended up going a little longer to where he got Batterskull out, and he was able to get he was able to get like I think a swing in to put him at 24.
Yeah,
which is the worst thing,
right? And I had Safekeeper. Yeah, like anytime my opponent's life total goes over 20, it makes the game a lot harder, right?
Because so for people that don't know the Turbo Depths, you make a Merit Lage token. Which is a 20/20 indestructible. So Swords is really good against it, but it's also a flyer, so it swings over most things. So being over 20 life is bad.
Yeah. So so I think Nick was at 24, and he had done a good bit of chip damage, which D&T's known for, right? It gets in that damage. I think I was around 10, maybe 8 live, and I landed the Safekeeper. and I was able to get the Merit Lage out with him at 24. So it was going to take two hits for me to kill him. But
So
I think he attacked with his guy again to gain some more life.
What happened was I had Batterskull out, and I had gotten to 24, and then Espinoza was going to make the Merit Lage token, next turn, and it had gone to my turn, and my draw for the turn was Mirran Crusader.
which is the one creature I cannot deal with.
Which was the perfect draw at that time, because it's not going to get Assassin's Trophy, it's not going to get Abrupt Decayed, and I could swing through both. Yeah, both Merit Lage and the Safekeeper that he had out. So not only was it the best draw because I couldn't swords his Merit Lage or Caracas it because of a Safekeeper, but I could deploy the Mirran Crusader, take 20 damage on the Crackback, drop to 4, and then untap, equip the Batterskull, and smash for 12 or
so it's got double strike.
Strike.
So like that was the one, and I died with like an Abrupt Decay, and like it was savage. I think that was the only creature that gets me because I had the blocker. But Mirran Crusader is so difficult to play against. And I was telling Nick after the match, we could talk about Game 3 in a minute, but I was telling Nick after the match, like I did not expect much of D&T, so like I cut my Dread of Knights in my sideboard.
So the D&T pick was good. Do you think you took some people by surprise?
I don't know about surprise. I mean, I guess it depends, especially, with the Masters crew. Like, most people kind of know what people are on.
That's true, yeah.
So I don't think necessarily surprised. Maybe some of my sideboard tech or some of my card choices might have been a surprise, but I think most people probably maybe put me on that deck.
All right. So what is your sideboard tech if you want to go over that? I mean, the Masters is over.
Yeah.
So for our Arizona meta, there's some established decks and established players and stuff like that we have here. But there's also a lot of players that have a lot of cards, and they just play some random stuff. For the Masters, what was some of the weirder or more unique cards that you put in for our specific meta?
Yeah, that's a good question. There was definitely a few weird ones that some people had asked me about and were even confused what they had done. And that's kind of the best part, too, about Legacy sometimes when you play a card and someone has to read it and you got to go, oh, we got a reader here, This guy doesn't know this card. It's always a great time. The first one was a card that's from a commander or, EDH, if you want to call it, pre-con deck called Hollowed Spirit Keeper. It's a 3-drop creature. It's
Hollowed Spirit Keeper?
Hollowed Spirit Keeper, yep. It's a 3-drop. It's 1 generic and 2 white, and it's a 3/2 body with vigilance. And when it dies, it creates X 1/1 flying spirit tokens, where X is the number of creatures in your graveyard.
All right.
Which is pretty solid because, things die, things trade, things, die in combat all the time. And usually you're having about 4 to 8 creatures in your yard, depending on the matchup and how long it is. And it's been really good against Grixis Control, which has been kind of a tough matchup online and really brutal with K-Command, blowing up your artifacts. So
blowing up your artifacts, fatal pushing your creatures. It all goes to the graveyard, and then you bust that guy out. So I know a lot of people run Rest in Peace to deal with Grixis Control as well. Mm-hmm. Did you have that in your sideboard as well, or did you swap that out?
I did have 2 Rest in Peace in my board, but it actually really wasn't for Grixis Control. I was more wanting to just kind of grind against Grixis Control.
Gotcha.
Rest in Peace was honestly for the 4-color loam matchup, because that just kind of savages that matchup, which if we go over some of the rounds, I'll kind of highlight, because it just stops, most importantly, punishing fire. So that way you're not losing your entire board, and also good old Life from the Loam, so you're not getting Wasteland locked repeatedly and losing your utility lands.
Yeah, well, that Hollowed, what was it? Hollowed
Spirit Keeper.
Hollowed Spirit Keeper. I'll have to look into that. So, and what would be some other matchups that you bring that in besides Grixis Control? Did you bring
he was running one main.
I don't know if I would run it. I mean, maybe against Grixis Delver, probably. Maybe. I don't think I'd run it against like Rug Delver, because they might just stifle the trigger and then you kind of get blown out.
And you don't bring it in like the mirror or white matches. That's going to be exiling your stuff, right? Like Miracles and
Swords and stuff. Yeah.
Any swords.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't bring it in against Miracles. Snapcaster Swords is going to just get rid of it.
Yeah.
But things like 4-color Loam, things like Grixis Control, and I even kept it in and against 12 Post in the quarterfinals, I believe. Yeah, the quarterfinals, because there was some times where, like, if you can maybe use, you Violet in on 3 and you double block with the Spirit Keeper and Thalia against like a Thought Knot Seer, you can apply first strike damage, return your Thalia with Caracas, let the Hollowed Spirit Keeper deal the final 3.
I would have never thought of that.
Let it die, trade, kill the Thought Knot, draw a card from the Thought Knot trigger, and then also deploy 4 to 8 tokens in the air, which is really critical because you're definitely the beat down in that matchup. You don't have time to waste.
Yeah.
Because Emrakul and friends are coming. So.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like a great card to just like gum up the board.
Yeah.
Blockers for days.
Kind of the same idea that maybe like Bitter Blossom has in Grixis Delver and Grixis Control.
Yeah.
It just applies some pressure there, and it's a little bit more all at once though. So instead of being every turn,
Yeah, it feels like a Lingering Souls on a body kind of.
yeah, yeah, Lingering Souls. That's a good card, man.
Yep.
All right, so what other kind of like weird tech did you have there that maybe someone wouldn't see in the typical?
Yeah, I had a card, Absolute Law, which I'm trying to remember exactly the set it's from, but it's fading on me. I want to say in one of Urza's sets, but Absolute Law is a 2-mana enchantment, 1 generic and a white, and it's all creatures gain protection from red, which is really good, and it really helps a lot in some of the tough matchups. It just hoses Punishing Fire, which 4-color Loam is going to run. Also stops one of our players in the Masters, Big Papa Kaufman there. I expected him on Blue Red Delver.
Yeah.
Sure enough, that's what he was on. So all the bolts, all those chain lightnings, they're not going to your board, so Dahlia is staying around, which is good, and you can keep putting pressure on. Another one that I brought.
You have a lot of burn in Arizona.
Yeah, or just red stuff like
And
goblins.
Yeah, like Stompy and goblins. We have a lot of just kind of gross red decks.
Yeah, that's why I brought a Warmth as well, which
What's
is
Warmth?
Warmth, I think it's 2 mana, but I might be wrong. It might be 3 if I'm not mistaken. But Warmth is whenever a player casts a red spell, you gain 2 life. So
bad.
It's a tough
Kind
call.
of like Core Firewalker, except no body.
It's just an enchantment, yeah.
Just
Just an enchantment.
It
yeah.
doesn't die. It's harder to kill, I guess.
Hard
right?
to
Is that what you
kill,
put it?
right? Yeah.
True.
So, although Core Firewalker has protection from red, so also
Yeah.
kind of hard to kill. But
Yeah.
it's nice because you can kind of get more life as the game goes along, as opposed to just gaining 4 or 6 life initially. So that was another kind of weird sideboard card. That's pretty much it for like weird cards in the board. Mostly
Okay.
Hallowed Spirit Keeper.
So how was your matchup? So like I know it was triple elimination and then cut. I can't remember exactly
And then
what
cut
the
to top
format
eight.
was.
Yeah, so
It
you
was
go
cut to top
3-2. Anyone that goes 3-2 makes top 8.
eight. Okay.
Yeah, it was a weird format because there was only 16 of us, playing. So
Yeah.
it was 2 pods of 8, and you had to go 3-2 or better to get into top 8.
Okay. Playing
So-
people in your own pod only.
The first, I believe,
3 rounds
3
were-
rounds were in. Yeah, the first 3
Okay.
rounds were in your own pod, and after the first 3 rounds, it cross-podded with the same record.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah, and then after that, it was whoever had a 3-2 or better record was in top 8. So
Okay. Cool.
Yep.
So you made it to top 8. How was your pod? What was your What were your memorable matchups? Do you remember?
Yeah, there was a few different things. I think I even wrote a couple of notes I'll pull out. But the first matchup was against, SB here. And we had gone over rounds 1 and 2, but round 3 was close as well. I remember having a board of Batterskull and some friends. So I once again got above the 20 life threshold, which was nice. And then I remember the last line of the game, as I was wanting to force SB to make the token, so that way I could have an answer to it and be able to for that answer to resolve and
Yeah,
not have a Sylvan
make it on your
Safekeeper.
own time.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember porting a Thespian stage, and he responded by making the Merit Lage. And then I needed to draw something because I had 2 turns at most before I was probably dead. And luckily enough, after I was dead on board, I top decked a Caracas, which was a nice clean answer to get rid of the
probably the
Merit
best
Lage.
answer there.
Yeah, real nice. And
It's
so
permanent. That is a permanent answer.
yeah, that locked it up. Round 2 was against, I believe, Christian Castro. It was against 4-color Loam.
Okay.
Which was a matchup that I was just a little concerned about, but I had enough sideboard stuff. I think it was okay. Game 1 was the nuts. It was turn 1 Mom, turn 2 Stoneforge, turn 3 Batterskull, and it was turn 4. I already had the Sword of Fire and Ice in hand, so it was deploy Sword of Fire and Ice and equip to Batterskull.
Wow.
So it was the 6/6 Vigilance, pro red, pro blue, lifelink card advantage. So he conceded pretty quickly on that one. And then game 2, he got me. His opening started out with Wastelands and Loams and P-Fires. He eventually got a knight, and then he dropped a Queen Marchesa as well. So it was
I don't know what that is.
from Conspiracy, Take the Crown.
No, it's the first Conspiracy.
That was
this is the other one.
The second one.
The Blood Rose is the first one, right?
Blood or Black? Is it Black Rose or Blood Rose?
Something
I think it's
like
Black
that.
Rose.
But yeah, this is the new Queen
new
Marchesa.
one. Yeah,
All right, so the new queen. What's the
new
name
Queen,
again?
Queen Marchesa.
Marchesa. All right.
Unless if I'm pronouncing that right.
Marchesa,
Who knows?
something like
Yeah.
Who knows? What does she do?
She's a 4-drop, so she's a generic, and then Mardu, or for you old school players, it's or Daga, whatever you want to call it, red, black, white. And when she enters, you become the monarch, and then she's a 3/3 body. And when your opponents become the monarch, it's like at your upkeep, you create a 1/1 assassin creature token with haste.
Interesting.
So you can try and like regain the monarch crown again. So he dropped that, and I got buried in card advantage and then died. And then
sounds like some weird conspiracy card thing.
Yeah.
Where you're making it makes tokens for your opponent when you are the monarch?
No. When you're the monarch, you just have a 3/2 death touch haste queen.
Well, no,
Okay,
she's
then when your
3/3.
opponent
Excuse me,
becomes
3/3.
the monarch is when you start making 1/1s on your upkeep or whatever.
Yeah,
No, well, so the way it's Death Touch Haste 3/3.
Yeah.
Which enters you become monarch at the beginning of your upkeep. If an opponent is the monarch,
Yeah.
oh yeah, you're totally right. Put a 1/1 black assassin on your.
So
Death Touch on,
if the opponent has the crown, you get this advantage from her by creating assassin tokens to try and get more attackers to crack through, get the damage, re-trigger the monarch, and start pulling ahead. So we died to that.
That sounds spicy, man.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Game 3 was a close one, but I remember I had gotten out a turn 2 Rest in Peace, which was critical because then it slowed him down. It stopped the Wasteland lock because he had Life from the Loam. And I also then didn't have to worry about continuous punishing fire. And then I remember there was a critical line where I was stuck on 2 lands. One was a basic plains and one was a Horizon Canopy. And he had played a Verdant Catacombs as opposed to a Wasteland. And that was crucial because then I top decked my 3rd land the next turn and got to deploy Brimaz, King of Oreskos, which was
I love Brimaz.
Yeah, some solid 3/4, fatty action to just make cat tokens and gum
Daddy.
up the board. Yeah, the cat daddy.
Dude.
Yeah, so that was real nice.
I played him back in standard.
Yeah.
When he was out. Man, that was a good standard time.
Yeah. Then
It's a good card.
he deployed a knight, but the knight was just a 2/2, so it wasn't
Because
that
of the rest
scary
in
because of the
peace.
rest in peace,
Yep.
which was great. I had to be a little concerned that I didn't play into something silly and get blown out because it can still search for lands by sacking
Yeah.
them. But
a lot of times they run the Merit Lage combo, so they can
True.
kind of
sneak attack.
slowly assemble that.
Yeah, just backdoor entrance into the win. And then he had deployed the queen again, and he was the monarch. But it was kind of like a last-ditch effort to start to gain card advantage and try and crawl back into the game from the cat tokens and the Brimaz. And I think I had even gotten Batterskull at one point. And I eventually cracked in for damage and stole the monarch crown and started to draw cards on my end step. So that was pretty cool highlight. And so we won that round. Round 3 was not much to note. It was me versus Killian, and he chose elves for this tournament.
Yeah,
So
I heard about that.
yeah, that's a 90-10 matchup.
I love elves.
It's not in my
but
favor.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's really hard.
It was, we died, I think, turn
I've ever
1.
lost to D&T with elves.
You need to get real lucky and have some
Yeah.
real specific sideboard hate. Yeah. So
I think they've pulled the game off me, but I've never.
yeah, it's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good. Yeah. So we lost to elves. It was pretty bad. Then this next matchup was round 4, and I'm 2-1, so I need to just win one more round to lock up top 8. I have 2 chances to do it, so I'm feeling pretty good. But then I get paired up against Tash, and since Miracles has kind of taken a nosedive from the glory days of Sensei's top, he's been on Storm for a while, and that's also not a good matchup for D&T. So I'm like, well, this isn't good. So let's see what we can do. So
Gotta get a Thalia out quick.
we
right?
got to get a Thalia out quick, or something else that's going to put the hate on and
maybe like
hold on
Palace
tight.
or no, what Prelate?
Sanctum Prelate.
Prelate?
Yeah, Sanctum Prelate. Yeah, it's a really good card. So he rolls a 10 for the die roll, so he gets to go first, and I roll boxcars. So we're doing good, right? We won the die roll.
That's important.
That's
that
important in
matchup.
Legacy,
Yeah.
right? So we get to go turn 1 plains and pass, and he goes turn 1 island preordained. So I'm like, all right, like you're telling me there's a chance because I have the Thalia in hand, and so he passes back. We drop the Thalia, so it keeps us alive.
So that's exactly what you needed there on
Exactly what we needed. And then we start slowly chipping away. He, pays mana to like cast Lotus Petals, brainstorms at the taxed rate, ponders at the taxed rate. We're just chipping away 2 damage. All we have is this Thalia. It's, and he's somewhere around probably 14 to 16 life, and he generates 6 mana to cast an Ad Nauseam, and he has no mana floating. So he starts going down the Ad Nauseam route, and he drops to somewhere around, I think, 4 life. And he can't continue the Storm Chain because even casting a Lotus Petal or an LED would cost 1 more, and Thalia's on the board. So he has to pass back, and then we crack in for 2, drop him to 2, and he just couldn't get it together on that last round. So we kind of stole game 1, which was crucial and very, very lucky. Round 2.
That's really important.
Yeah.
So then what does your sideboard look like? What do you bring in?
For that matchup, I definitely cut, Swords to Plowshares. It's awful in that matchup. Bring in Aethersworn Canonist to stop the multiple spells a turn that aren't artifacts, as well as the Grafdigger's Cage I think I brought in to try and stop the flashback of Past in Flames. And also a Rest in Peace, not so much holding on to that because it's going to be more expensive if I have Thalia, but it is nice to get rid of the threshold mechanic of Cabal Ritual. So those are the cards I'm kind of looking at.
Hey, I got a question.
Sure.
Like, I don't know much about D&T, like, especially the sideboard. 3 Aethersworn Canonist is not typical, right? It was mainly for the Masters?
Is
it just such a bad matchup that you always have 3 in that sideboard?
Well, I mean...
I used to run it in Stoneblade. I used to run...
like 1 or 2, 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's just a really hard matchup typically for those type of decks because they're just running a little bit slower. You need the extra hate bears and like 2 containment priests as well, and then for like sneak and show, you bring all of that in.
Yeah. So you normally run 3?
I normally run 3. Sometimes I've run 4. Even.
Oh, shit. Okay.
It depends on how bad you think your combo match is and how many people are going to run combo. If you're expecting a whole bunch, I might even run like an Orum's Chant, which is a 1 mana instant that players can't cast spell. It's like Silence, but it also has a kicker to creatures can attack this turn, which has been nice.
Can't attack?
Can't attack.
That's awesome.
That's been pretty solid too, even against Turbo Depths when they think they have the win, they have like you triple Pithy Needle, then you just need 1 more turn, and then on their main phase you cast Orum's Chant with kicker, they can't attack with Mirror Age, and then you untap Mom Pro Black, swing in and win, which has been pretty good.
That sounds nasty.
Some other things that I would normally bring in against Storm as well would be the Holy Light, which I sometimes run, which is a phenomenal card if you have a lot of True Name Nemesis or Young Pyromancer tokens. It's a 3 mana instant from the dark, I believe, 2 generic and a white, and it's non-white creatures get -1/-1, which is superb.
Sweet.
And it's great because often
there's very few like board clears like that in white that aren't just like destroy everything.
Wrath of God, yeah.
Yeah, like Wrath of God.
Yeah, well, yeah, we can't.
Supreme Verdict, like a one-sided board wipe in white. That must be real nice.
It's really nice because it's also an instant, so people, you can use the tempo play, and people don't really see it coming. And then with Storm on games 2 and games 3, if you have that in your board, they'll usually just go for the turn 1 or, right away and go with Empty the Warrens because they don't want to wait for the Aethersworn Canonist or the Thalia to drop down. So they'll go into the Empty the Warrens and make the Goblins, and then you usually have just enough turns to cast it, wipe them up, and come back from there.
So you pulled your game off with Tash then.
That was game 1.
Well,
I heard there was a really
that was
epic
game
play,
1.
and I want to hear about that.
So then game 2, this one was a little interesting. So game 2 happens, and I'm on the draw, and he's playing some spells, cantripping. I think I had played a Mother of Runes. Yeah, I played Mother of Runes on my turn 1, and then his turn 2, he does some cantripping, and he goes LED, pass turn. And so I'm like, okay, and I'm looking at my hand, and I drop my second land, and I have Thalia, Rest in Peace, and Phyrexian Revoker.
Ooh.
And so I'm like, this is tough. I'm like, I'm not 100% sure on what I should play here.
Oh,
Thalia, slows him down with taxing the mana. Rest in Peace stops the line of him flashing back with Past in Flames, and Revoker stops the LED. And so that was a real tough one. I could probably talk about that for an hour about which is the right line and which one's the best play to do based upon the statistics and the probability of him drawing certain outs. But I eventually choose the Revoker because it seemed too juicy to stop the LED. So
he played him out.
So I cast Revoker, named the LED, and I pass back to him, and Then we're sitting there, and he, generates some more mana. He once again goes into an ad nauseum, right? Mm-hmm. And he's drawn first thing he flips over is an Empty the Warrens. So I'm like, oh, this isn't good, And he's drawn.
Got his money card right off the bat.
He's got at least a payoff card with Storm, but I'm super dead to a Tendrils. If he gets the Tendrils, I'm dead. And he's going down in life, and he gets down to 4 life, and he stops because I assume he doesn't want to flip the 5 mana sorcery. I forget the one with Spell Mastery.
Oh,
Dark Petition.
Dark Petition. Thank you. Yeah, I assume he doesn't want to hit Dark Petition, so he's at 4 life, and he then casts the Empty the Warrens, and Storm's insane. He makes 30 goblin tokens, Jeez. So I'm super dead, but this is a testament to all players in general to never concede. Make them kill you, especially in Masters. Like, you never know if someone's going to make a mistake. You never know if someone's tired. Or if
I always pre-scoop.
Yeah, no.
Give them the opportunity to throw the game.
Yeah, you always got to let them give them just enough rope to hang themselves, and make a mistake. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, we're totally dead, but let's see how this goes. So there's 30 goblins on board, and he's finished the ad nauseum. He's at 4 life, and then he casts Thoughtseize.
So he goes down to 2.
So he looks at my hand, and he sees Thalia and Rest in Peace, and he takes, I think, Rest in Peace, maybe Thalia, and he takes 2 life from the Thoughtseize, and he goes down to 2. But the goblins don't have haste, and I'm sitting there with Mom and Revoker on board. And right as I see that, I'm sitting there, I'm like, we realized it at the same time. Yeah, we're looking at it, and I'm like, did this just happen? Like, did the Thoughtseize just win me the game? And so he has to pass the turn, and I untap, and I go pro red, swing with Revoker, and I got there. So we 2-0'd Storm, and that was pretty lucky.
Tash, dude,
it was
completely killed himself.
It was a little rough, but this is payback for that boom bust, Tash. You know what you did.
Wow.
You know what you did.
Wow, that's a good.
Yeah,
that is a good match. Poor Tash, dude. Poor Tash.
Yeah. Should have been dead. I should have been dead on that
Storm
one.
is a difficult deck to pilot. Like, there's
Very.
a lot of math, and there's a lot of hate cards, and because it's so popular and so powerful, it's a boogeyman to a lot of decks for sure. But what other memorable matchups? So that was your first 3 rounds. So
I think that was first 4, right?
That was the first 4. So we locked up top 8, and the next round was just for seed placement for top 8 then, and that was against Kevin McCoy, and he was on Black Red Reanimator.
Yeah.
And we died game 1, which was pretty expected usually of Reanimator. Game 2, he had unmasked me to stop me if I had a Rest in Peace, and I didn't have any real graveyard hate.
Yeah.
But then I had just played out Revokers, and I had named Gristlebrand just in case, and the Revokers just beat down and kind of got there. He didn't have a way to entomb or get anything in the yard. So we stole game 2, and then game 3 we had the nut draw. We had opening hand of Surgical, Grafdigger's Cage, and who cares what the rest of it was. So we had the turn 0 hate and the turn 1 hate.
Yep.
He didn't reveal a Chancellor, which was nice, and he Faithless Lootings, puts 2 big guys in the yard, passes the turn, and then we drop Plains, Grafdigger's Cage, and he scoops them up from there because he didn't have any permanent hate.
Yeah.
So we won the seed placement. So we were then, what was that, 4-1? Yeah. 4-1 for top 8. So that was real nice. In the top 8, we went against Little Tommy Kaufman of the
on 12 post.
Yep, on 12 post.
Yep.
This was a matchup where
he's been jamming that deck for a couple of years now.
Yeah, he's gotten pretty good with that deck. And that's a deck that not a lot of people play. So, and it's also a deck you can bring some spice. Like, there's all kinds of colorless cards that you don't know what to expect. And as I'm playing him in game 1, he drops a Candelabra, which is also an extremely expensive card. So I was not expecting that.
He's got Tabernacle too.
Yeah.
Tommy Kaufman's got it all, dude.
Yeah, he's balling out of control there. So game 1, he had gone Thought Knot Seer on turn 2, and I think took a Stoneforge. We then Swords to Plowshare it. Sometime around turn 3 or 4, he does second Thought Knot Seer, takes something else. We draw another Swords to Plowshares, get rid of it.
Still in it.
Yeah, and then there was I think a third Thought Knot Seer that we traded with in combat.
Okay.
And then there was a Wormcoil Engine that drops. Ooh. And then we luckily hit a third Swords to Plowshares to cleanly answer the Wormcoil.
So you're still in it.
We're still in it.
Good back and forth.
Yeah, and then we just barely, I think, got there with some beaters and stole game 1, which was nice. Then game 2 was a close one. we started getting Thought Knotted again, and there was a big, board presence. I eventually got a Hollowed Spirit Keeper out, but this was just before the Hollowed Spirit Keeper. He had dropped a Boom Pile to blow up the board, which was pretty brutal.
What's Boom Pile?
Boom Pile is a 4-mana artifact.
Okay.
That says tap, flip a coin. If you win the flip, destroy all non-land permanents.
It's pretty good.
Pretty solid. Answer too for like enchantments and
hopefully you win the coin flip there.
Yeah, he won the coin flip. So like I think I had Mirran Crusader, Thalia, Stoneforge, something like that, and all my stuff died. Then I next turn had deployed a Spirit Keeper, and I was wanting to close the game out because again the Eldrazi Menace is on the horizon. You don't have enough time to sit there, and I had aggressively attacked with a Spirit Keeper into a Thought Knot to just let it die and get 4 to 6 spirit tokens.
Yeah.
And try and race if I had enough equipment. But
also that's good for Annihilator.
True.
Something.
Yeah, that is true. But that was not enough. We couldn't close the game out, and then Ulamog killed me based upon mill because I could actually chump and Caracas it a little bit to stabilize, but not enough to win. So that was pretty tough. Game 3 was pretty epic and pretty tight. It eventually came down to a turn 3 Mirran Crusader that I had dropped, and turn 2 just prior I had dropped Umezawa's Jite. So we had a solid clock and a solid beater, and he had plenty of Cloud Posts and Vesuvas to make a bunch of mana, and we had attacked with the Mirran Crusader, getting a whole bunch of Jite triggers because of First
He
Strike.
had 5.
Yeah, I eventually had 5 Jite counters, which was nice. So Mirran Crusader was lethal. He was a lethal one hit. If I got in one hit, it was over. All the pumps.
God, I love Jite.
Yeah, it was great. So, but then he had dropped a Thought Knot Seer and a Batter Skull in the same turn, and I think he was initially intending to block with the Batter Skull and chump and gain life, but the Germ token's black, so Mirran Crusader doesn't really care.
Yeah.
And he has to then block with the Thought Knot Seer, otherwise he's just going to die from the Mirran Crusader. So I untap, I attack, he attempts to block with the Batter Skull, point out that it's a Germ token that's black, so he then is forced to block with the Thought Knot. We easily pump once to go to a 4/4. First Strike cleans it up. More GT counters on it. So we're Mirran Crusader's juicing. He's through the roof. And then he's trying to buy time to get to Ulamog or to Emrakul. And he eventually, I think, had either drawn.
Got a Maze of Ith.
He got a Maze of Ith, yeah, which was definitely an issue. But I had top decked, I think, a Rashadan port. And one of the final.
That's so good.
One of the turns, though, this was really close because you gotta take your time and you gotta pay attention to not only how are you going to win, but also how do you not lose. And I saw the line to win of porting down the Maze of Ith, attacking with Mirran Crusader, pumping him up, and winning the game. But then I noticed he still had Candelabra untapped, and he had one Eldrazi
I thought you had
Temple.
Needle on it.
Well, not in this game, no.
Okay.
Because also Needle, it wouldn't stop the mana ability. Well, it's untapped lands, but yeah, no, I didn't have Needle on the Candelabra or Evoker.
Okay.
So what I had done was I was sitting there, I was like, wait, we're gonna lose this game if we attack with Mirran Crusader, and we had previously ported down the Maze. He's gonna activate his Candelabra with his one untapped land. He's then going to untap the Maze of Ith with the Candelabra.
Yeah.
He's going to fog the Mirran Crusader. Then he's going to untap with all of his mana plus the Candelabra. And going to cast an Emrakul or an Ulamog, and I'm going to get destroyed. So my hand was Recruiter, and this was a tough line. I was like, I'm not going to win this game if I attack into this. I have to try and buy one more turn. And the best way to do that was to stop as much mana as possible. So I have to play Recruiter of the Guard, tutor up a Phyrexian Revoker, play that to stop the Candelabra.
Smart.
Pass the turn, and then he has to untap. He doesn't then have enough mana with the Candelabra to cast the Ulamog or Emrakul, so he has to pass it back. We can then untap, then port down the Maze,
and come through with
the Mirran Crusader. Yeah,
that's a good line. That is a good line. I don't know if I would have saw that, but that's what you get when you play D&T and you get so many reps in with it.
Yeah, that's true. I've been playing the deck since Birthing Pod was banned in Modern, so it's been a while.
Let's talk about the final. So then you came up with...
He's got one more match, bro.
What?
He's got one more match. Top 4, right?
True. Yeah, that was the semifinal. So then or excuse me, that was the quarterfinals. Then the semifinals was once again against 4-color Loam, Christian Castro again. And game 1, I'm trying to remember.
He dropped the turn 1 Liliana of the Veil.
Yeah, game 1, he drops the turn 1 Liliana of the Veil. He goes land, Mox Diamond pitch, Liliana of the Veil, plus pass turn. So I'm like, all right, like, so this isn't great, but I was like, I think we can get through this depending upon how he activates his Liliana. And so we start off with like a Mother of Runes, and he doesn't make me edict it with the Liliana ability. He then still goes up. So then turn 2, I drop Stoneforge, which is great because we can tutor for Batterskull, which will put pressure on the Liliana. Plus, I can now sacrifice the Mother of Runes to the Liliana if he goes down on it. He does go down, so we get rid of the Mother of Runes. We then deploy the Batterskull, and we lose his card advantage each turn when he ticks up, but we get the Batterskull out to clean up the Liliana. His final card in hand, because he had discarded a bunch of cards from the Mox Diamonds, was a Sylvan Library, however. And he then, with the Sylvan Library triggers, peels back-to-back Knights of the Reliquary to then have 2 11/11 beaters that just, clearly outclassed the Batterskull. So we still lost that game despite getting through the Liliana, which was a bummer, but, oh well.
Yeah, I guess it puts enough early pressure on you that it's hard to recover from it.
Yeah. Game 2 was nice. We got a turn 2 Absolute Law, which I had brought in, which is, phenomenal to stop punishing fire.
Yeah.
And then we had gotten out a Remorseful Cleric, which is a newer card that some people may be unaware of. It's a one generic and a white. It's a 2/1 flyer from M19, Core 19. And it's basically Tormod's Crypt on a body. It is sacrifice it, exile target player's graveyard. So that's nice to also stop
Is that a new thing that D&T is running now?
I probably wouldn't say any real D&T players are probably running it, probably less than 1%. But I've been
tutor it up with a Recruiter.
Yeah, which is great. You can tutor it for Recruiter. It kind of gives you some game 1 play against some graveyard decks or like Dredge and things like that. And it's nice too to just like block a Gristlebrand, sacrifice it before damage. They don't gain life, and then kill them on the crackback.
Yeah.
So there's some shenanigans that you can do with it. So I got out a Remorseful Cleric and a Sarah Avenger and just started. It was either a Sarah Avenger or a Flicker Wisp. I may be wrong on that. And just kind of beat down in the air. Mm-hmm. And his mana base was a little, I think, shaky at that time. And it just kind of came through. And we got there. Game 3, I'm trying to remember game 3.
How is the 4-color Loam matchup for you? Do you find that it's pretty even, or do you find that it's a little bit unfavorable just because they have the pressure combined with the almost infinite removal?
Well, yeah, the number 1 best card is Sanctum Prelate by far, because naming 2 with Sanctum Prelate so they can't cast non-creature spells of converted mana cost of 2 is just what you need, because it stops punishing fire. It stops Loam. It also stops Abrupt Decay, which is great.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's huge. Then
Assassin's Trophy.
Yeah, Assassin's Trophy if they're running that. So then you just need to watch out for Swords to Plowshares and the fringe, well, I guess I shouldn't say fringe, but the lands like Cabal Pit or Barbarian Ring.
Run Swords to Plowshares and Chalice? Is that?
Actually, that's a good question. I'm not sure. I know in game 3, I saw some Swords to Plowshares.
Okay.
I'm not sure if he,
Did you see Chalice at all in that list?
No, I did not. I saw Chalice in the Swiss rounds, but not in the top or the semifinals or quarterfinal matchups.
Was it 2 different players?
No, same player.
Same player. Okay,
so he was running Chalice and Swords somewhere in the same 75, but not exactly sure where.
That's interesting. Okay.
So game 3 was one of the matchups or one of the games where really makes you appreciate D&T if you have practice with it and you kind of look at your lines and go with the game plan that you have to go with to try and win. It was a game where I didn't have necessarily the best powerful cards in the sense of like Batterskull, Stoneforge, and just raw card advantage, but I had really specific answers and really specific hate. And I got the Sanctum Prelate on turn 3, which was nice. Drop that down. Mm-hmm. Immediately lock out the 2 converted mana cost spells. So we stop punishing fire. We stop Wasteland and Loam Lock. We stop Abrupt Decay.
Yep.
And then he drops he had just previously dropped a Liliana Last Hope and had killed, I think, a Mother of Runes. And we played the Sanctum Prelate first in our hand because we had a Phyrexian Revoker, and we didn't want that to die from like a Punishing Fire or an Abrupt Decay, and then have the
protect it first.
Yeah,
and that way you can answer something.
And that way we can answer the Liliana. Yeah. So that was nice. So we play Sanctum first, and her plus ability is only a -2/-1. It's not a -2/-2. So we're good on that. He can just
Prelate's a 2/2.
Yeah, he's a 2/2. We can just have him be a 0/1. And after that, I top deck a Pithy Needle, which was perfect because on his turn he had dropped a Cabal Pit, which was definitely a concern. It's a land that with Threshold you can sacrifice and give a creature -2/-2. So he had an answer on board for the Sanctum, but luckily we drew the Pithy Needle to stop that.
That's pretty sweet. So you had the Revoker and the Pithy Needle out.
Yeah, we have
just to shut off his removal.
Exactly.
Plus the Prelate on too, so he can he can remove anything.
He couldn't remove much of it unless he drew like Swords to Plowshares, which I was concerned about. So we had the 3 pieces stopped, and we're just beaten down with these 2/2s. But if anything goes, if any one of these pieces go, it's all falling down. It's all like a rickety bridge. It's not going to hold on forever.
Yeah.
So I have to make the conscious decisions as well to specifically attack him and just leave the Liliana there, because if she was already at 5, I think 5 or 6, it was going to take 2 attacks.
Yeah, you got to close out that game quick before
I needed to close it out quick.
Something, maybe even like a Deluge or something to deal with that stuff. Yeah,
that's the other thing too. Deluge and Massacre, I was just dead to. I was like, we don't have the time or the resources to play around those cards. We simply have to just attack. We have barely enough holding on to stop each piece that he's deployed. So keep the pressure on and go from there and try to stop the Swords to Plowshares by porting white sources on upkeep.
Yeah.
We then drew into a Grafdigger's Cage and a Mother of Runes. A lot of people kind of always laugh or scoff or don't understand the Grafdigger's Cage from the outside of that matchup, but it's phenomenal at stopping both Green Sun Zenith as well as Dryad Arbor, because you don't want them pulling out that extra mana. You don't want them pulling out a flash blocker, essentially, or getting that engine of bringing out Knights of the Reliquary with the Green Sun Zenith. So we had
they're a little toolboxy, and they need sometimes to be able to search for that.
Right. So
that key creature.
Then we kept beaten down, and we got the Mother of Runes, and then he eventually had played 2 Dark Confidants to try and dig for the answers, presumably Swords to Plowshares.
Yeah.
And after those had flipped, I think, the Queen Marchesa again, so he took 4 damage off that, started taking, some more damage, and I could just attack freely, and if he blocked with Bob, I could pro black or what I needed to. He eventually then flipped to Swords to Plowshares off one of the Bobs, but I had the Mother of Runes to help keep the pieces in the team alive, which was nice.
That's sweet.
And I was also porting down his white sources, so he only had 1 white source given at any given time before his draw step. So that was nice. Eventually then, we drew a second Mother of Runes, locked it up, and barely got there. So that was cool.
All right, and then for your final match.
Yeah, for the final match, it was against Kevin McCoy on Red-Black Reanimator, and I knew what he was. Second time, right. We had played him in the 5th round to get our seed placement. And, this was a matchup. It was either going to be between him and the Blue-Red Delver player, Big Papa Kaufman. So I was pretty confident with both matchups. I feel like, kind of just a 50-50 overall. If the Reanimator player does their thing, I'm probably dead. And if the Blue-Red Delver player gets enough burn, I'm probably dead. It ended up being Kevin. So game 1, I have to mulligan to 5 to try and find some kind of answer.
That's rough.
Well, yeah, it's rough because my hands weren't bad. It was, Flicker Wisp, Stoneforge, Vial, but I have to mulligan these hands because it just doesn't do anything to turn 1 Gristlebrand or a Chancellor or a Sire. So
yeah, you got to have some kind of answer.
Right.
Some kind of interaction.
Exactly. And I'm looking for Swords to Plowshares or Caracas. Normally, Caracas would be better for the Gristlebrand, but he's going to probably play something that's not Gristle. I mean, it depends, but either way, I mold the 5. I find a Swords. That's probably as good as you're going to get for game 1. So I keep that. I immediately get unmasked, lose the Swords, turn 1 Gristlebrand. We're pretty much dead here. I think I had even maybe gotten rid of the Gristlebrand with the Swords, and then I think the turn 2 was Chancellor of Annex and Ashen Rider to exile one of my lands. So quickly lose game 1. Kind of expected. A bit of a bummer. Go to game 2.
That's how that game typically goes. Black Red Reanimator, that their whole game plan is to get the game 1.
Right.
Sure.
Right. To have
the nuts. If they don't get that, their win percentage goes down substantially.
Sure. We sideboard in 2 Rest in Peace, a Surgical, a Grafdigger's Cage, and we keep in, of course, our other Graveyard Hate of the Remorseful Cleric, even though it's a little bit slower. We draw our 7 hand, and it's lands, Thalia, and a Surgical. So it's not bad. We have the turn 0 hate, and we even can play it through a Chancellor trigger because we're on the play. So if he has a pregame effect and reveals the Chancellor, we can then go turn 1 planes, pass, and if he goes to reanimate, we can pay 2 life, Surgical, and pay for the tax effect.
Yeah. That was a 7, right? You kept
I believe that was a 7, yeah.
Okay, cool.
I even kind of thought, too, I was like, do I even play the Thalia on turn 2 if I make it that far? Because then I won't be able to Surgical because Thalia will...
I think you just have to hold it.
I think I would probably
to be defensive.
hold it up, but we didn't make it that far, sadly, so it didn't really matter.
Did he strip your hand?
Yeah, game 2, same kind of deal. Unmask, target you, strip the Surgical, and, unmask exiles the card that you used to pay for it, so you can't even, Surgical what was
because he
used.
unmasked Grizzlebrand, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he unmasked the Grizzlebrand, and it's like you can't even then Surgical the Grizzlebrand to at least...
to see what he has in his hand.
See what he has in his hand, or make the damage a little bit less. Yeah, so then we lose our Surgical, and then we promptly die to, a second Grizzlebrand, drawing a bunch of cards, so...
That's the nut, though.
It's the nut.
You can't do a whole lot about that. I mean, you can.
Nah.
I mean, what do you do? Mull a 7 with the Surgical against Black Red? You just can't.
No.
You needed blue with Force of Will to make it through that.
Either that, or you need something even faster, like Leyline of the Void, to stop.
It's true.
That, but that's not necessarily a good idea. But shout out to everyone playing at the good old Masters event. Everyone, was a good player to make it there, and I had a great time playing. And at the same time as well, I think if I did win it, then, there's nothing left to chase in a way. So it's kind of nice to still have that carrot to chase for the next year. And, that I'll definitely be back. So,
yeah. I mean, I've made it to the Masters, since this is the last one that I did not make it to. And it's always fun competing every year. It's really fun. Mm-hmm. And if you already have the auto invite, what are you going to do? Just, play King of the Hill and, for the whole... Well, actually, that sounds pretty fun, too.
It does,
Just keep people out of it,
Yeah, high-level Legacy, if you get people that are good with their deck and have skill with it and practice and really want to play as best as they can, that's some of the best Magic.
Yeah. We got some good players in Arizona here, too. They're some Legacy-only players.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. Those are generally the best kind of Legacy player, for sure. And we got some questions from the Legacy community. So thanks for your tournament report, man. That was very thorough.
No problem.
I'm amazed that you still remember all that stuff. It's a good memory. So we're going to do some questions now here from the community. And we got a lot of stuff this time. So last time, instead of just reading off Anthony's questions, we actually got a pretty good response. So first, we're going to start off here with Mr. Gary Wong. He was our guest from last time, and he actually had a question for you. Is your D&T deck foiled out?
Almost. I'd say it's probably 85 to 90%. We're missing, I think, a couple of Thalias, a Stoneforge, and some Rashadan ports. But of course, aesthetics are everything. You got to go with what you like the best, and I like the Markidian Masks art better, and that's a pretty penny. That's a $450, $500 per port card, so
it's pricey.
But
the old border foils look so much better. I'm really partial to those. Mm-hmm. Now, do you have any consistency? Do you try to go oldest foils possible, or do you go with just whatever looks best to you at the time?
Art wise, I usually just prefer what looks best to me. That's usually the older cards and usually older foils. My main caveat, which so
even if it doesn't match, you're okay with it. As long as it looks good to you?
That's my main caveat is the matching, just from a spike kind of mindset and a statistical probability of people looking at your hand and knowing what you're on and drawing wrong cards that you then play. So I try to keep lands matching and sets matching. Don't give them information with a Thoughtseize or a Duress and then have you draw a different land and play a different land and then they know what you drew for that turn. It's not where you want to be. So
yeah, cool, man. When I was foiling out Grixis Delver, which I'm still doing, I was trying to get the oldest foils possible.
Yeah.
Because Grixis, those old blue foils with the Dazes from Nemesis and Stifles, those older foils, Like the old border on those it's just fire, man. And then speaking of lands, Gary has a follow-up question. Actually, more important question, Gary says. What is your basic land choice? SP, you want to go on that one? What do you use?
Beta basics.
Beta.
The OG art is the best. They look great and they're cheap. I love gurus, but I'm not going to spend $500 on a basic.
Gurus are baller.
The guru art is incredible, but we're going to do the beta basics.
Tony Murata has all of his stuff. Oh, it's so good looking, dude. All of his gurus.
Yes.
Yeah, he's got some good cards.
Geez. He's got all his islands and forests and swamp. Like, he has it all, man.
I think he's got beta duels too. So.
And he's got beta tools, yeah. All right, what about you, Nick? What do you like?
So for D&T, I run some full art Zendikar ones, but specifically, I don't know the number, but it's
That's
like
classy. Foils, of course.
Foils, of course, right?
Yeah.
Naturally, if anyone knows me, I'm always going to try and foil it out. It's the pyramid one that's all kind of messed up and like the like looks like almost the ground or whatever is
like
all
a
broken.
hedron or a pyramid?
No, it looks like a pyramid. It's not a. I'm pretty sure it's a pyramid.
Is it an upright pyramid or like an inverted pyramid?
It's an upright pyramid that's like dilapidated and breaking down and crumbling. And I think it kind of fits the theme of Death and Taxes. So that's the choice of land for that. And then for Grixis, which I also play, I use a Lorwyn Island number 287, I believe, in foil. That's the one that has all the really pretty like pink and purple flowers in the river with some green, shrubs and stuff. That one looks awesome. And even just at Vegas that we were just out, one of the judge for our legacy event, he even pulled me aside later and he was like, "Hey man, like what island do you use for your deck?" And I was like, "Oh, you like that? Yeah, it's Lorwyn, man. It's pretty sweet." He's like, "Yeah, I've never seen that."
Border on them, man.
The border, it's just the basic, border. It's nothing.
The old border is better. I'm gonna be that guy right now. And they're good, man. You're talking about the fairy themed ones.
Yeah. But
yeah.
Because you play the swamp too with all the flowers, right?
Yeah.
I actually don't run that in my Grixis one. I mean, I can see why people would run that for like the completion and the set, the match. But no, I actually run just a Shadowmoor one that is one of my favorites. Just kind of dark purple.
Mismatch.
Yeah.
I do all matching from APAC. That's and Euro.
Good choice.
Yeah, you got
and
like the sunflowers. The Sunflower Plains.
Sunflower Plains, that's my favorite one there. And then I do the Taiwan Island, which is the little ship. If I'm doing Euro, then I do the Italy one for the islands.
That's expensive.
That's one's like, I don't know, $35-$40, something like that. They've all gone up.
They're dope, though. They're great lands.
Yeah, they've all gone up. And then for the swamps, I use Taiwan swamps too. And
with like the cemetery?
No, I think it's Hong Kong. Actually, yeah, it's the cemetery swamp.
The Ron Spears art. It's so good.
Yeah, where it has like the spirits and stuff coming out of the.
I wish that was in foil.
Yeah, I wish it was too.
That'd be real nice.
Yeah.
That is some good art. And then there is a forest. I can't remember which one it is, but it's super just like bright green, and it's got a little house. Like in the trees. I use that one.
A little elf lives in there.
Yeah, exactly. I use that one in elves, or I use the betas. Betas are good, man. Betas are good, especially like that one forest that's
the
in
path,
the beta. That's
Chris
the
Rush
darker one. You know what I'm talking about? How there's one that's like was printed darker.
So there's like the path with the tree and the little path. Is that the one?
I think that's one. Yeah, it might be that.
That's
one.
my
Might be
favorite.
the darker one.
Yeah.
Like the whole card is darker. Like they printed it darker than the other forest.
Oh, I think I know what you're.
You know
it
what
has
I'm
like the
talking
trees with like the little eyes in the holes. Maybe I don't know, but
maybe I have to go look at it. But there's one like dark forest. That one's good just because it just looks off from the other forest in that set. All right, so then let's see. SB, you want to pull up a question here? Or here, I got it. Okay. All right, so this one's a long one. This is from Frankie, who's on the Arizona Eternal Magic team, which we got to get Frankie on here at some point, dude. He plays so much, and he's really active in the community too, and with the Leaving a Legacy community too. But Frankie asks, most decks that don't play Brainstorm either do something exceptionally broken, are a Chalice deck, or are incredible consistent in other ways. With tutors, matron, gamble, etc., or card advantage, confidant, loam, etc. With D&T not following those principles too much, how does D&T really compete with the rest of the field? What is the allure of the deck without having the consistency of other decks?
It's a great question, and kind of a tough one to answer on the surface if you're like you're new to D&T and you look at Legacy as a whole. You're kind of saying, how is this pile of white weenies going to ever take down Emrakul or whatever, or Merit Lage? And the answer that I can best describe is a few things. Number one, and the most important tool, is knowledge with the deck. We were taking a break before, and I was talking to Zach here, our host, a little bit about this, about like the permutations of decks and the lines of play and how much it takes to learn a deck. Storm, for example, is a deck that I think has the most permutations of its individual deck choice in Legacy, since there's so many lines, so many routes you can go, and so many ways you can win. However, I would argue that Death and Taxes has more permutations when you start to add that you need to know what your other opponent is doing and what their deck does and how to stop it. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of practice and a lot of reps, and that's the most important tool. And if you know your opponent's deck and you know how to stop them, what makes it tick, where you need to put the linchpin, pithy needles, revokers, etc., that will take you a far way. And the other tool is card quality as opposed to card advantage. So, for example, Mirran Crusader is really great against those black-green matchups because you don't have to worry about the Abrupt Decays or the Assassin's Trophy. He's just immune to it. So you essentially are beating their cards by it just being a non-factor. And then the third piece is good old-fashioned mana denial. Wasteland Import and Aether Vial is, that'll get you there too. So you put all those pieces together.
That's kind of what I was thinking. I was thinking like you kind of make up for the consistency by making other decks less consistent.
Yeah.
Like you tax their ability to card draw maybe with, Spirit of the Labyrinth. Or
right.
Their spells cost more with Thalia, or your creatures are just better because you're proing them and you're equipping stuff to them. So you're just, the quality thing that you mentioned, but at the same time, then you're attacking their mana base, Wastelands, Rishadan Ports, stuff like that. There used to be I think that D&T used to use Mangara. Of Cornador or whatever it was called.
Corindor.
Corindor?
Corindor or something.
That. So, there was that guy that used to like exile stuff
combo
too,
with Caracas.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, so you it was really even more oppressive than kind of the current list, I think.
I think
you would just exile crap.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just too slow.
Probably now. Yeah.
It definitely is slow, but I don't know. I could see it come back in a certain meta.
It's a win con, right?
It's a denial con, which sometimes is more important, not dying as opposed to winning.
Yeah. Like you'll just rob them of their permanents and win the game with whatever.
Whatever's left.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So do you think D&T at its core? Do you think it's a control list, or how would you classify it? I know Legacy is super weird, and the lines are blurred, and decks change, and their role depending on what other deck that they're playing. But in general, would you put it in the same category as Grixis Control and Miracles? Is it like a control type of deck when you play it? Is that why you play it?
That's not necessarily why I play it. I think I play it for just the lines that the deck has and always learning new things and also being rewarded for tight play. If you make mistakes, you will be punished and you will often lose. Case in point, the quarterfinals or semifinals matchup against 4-color Loam, if I made a mistake and sequenced my spells wrong and played something into a removal spell, the whole thing was going down. So there's that. But ultimately, I think it's a hybrid deck, and another AZ local, Dan Ford, had kind of explained it. It's similar to Goblins in a way, where like part of the game you're trying to tax and control and get yourself into a position where you can then turn the corner and finish it out and alpha strike and use equipment. So where that beginning is, Mom, Wastelands, Ports, Thalias, and Aether Vials, and late game you're shifting into Batter Skulls, Mirran Crusaders, Flicker Wisp, and finishing it out. So it really is a hybrid of knowing when to stay alive and knowing when to, you have no more time, you need to switch gears and you need to finish the game.
Yeah, I really like what you said, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but like the way that D&T makes up for its consistency, the first thing that you said was just knowledge and reps. Like you really do have to be very knowledgeable about Legacy in general. what's in your deck, how to get it out as quick as possible, and how to interact with a multitude of other decks. Maybe more, and it's more important for that than it is, being knowledgeable about your deck and the meta than it is for other decks that maybe can kind of lean on big tutors to win the game, maybe, or force plus blue card as kind of like an oh shit button, or brainstorm and ponders, like, late game when you chain some brainstorms and ponders and find an answer with a control deck, it feels really good, but D&T doesn't have all that, so it has to be, what you're saying is almost kind of perfect every step of the way to be maximum effectiveness.
Yeah, maximum effectiveness, and having a plan and sticking to it, and thinking of that plan, 10 steps before, 10 turns ago.
Right on. So let's see. SB, did you have any other questions that you want, that you saw that were good? I mean, we got...
Dan Ford asked 2 questions, and I think we can answer them pretty quick. So the first one, and I think it's really relevant to our meta because our meta is so weird, to say the least. So his question was, how different are your lists for our local meta versus an open meta like a GP or an SCG event? So I guess I'll open that one quick and answer that one first. So like Nick, I also made some tweaks for Masters and stuff, and I cut certain cards, and I brought in cards for what I expect to be here. But yeah, anytime I'm going to go to a GP or a large event outside of Arizona, I'm going to have a pretty standard, maybe generic board for my deck. Whereas
kind of almost net deck.
Like it'll have more
answers for everything,
a broader range of answers. Yeah. Whereas locally, even if it's like a 50-man tournament, locally, my deck will be more, or my sideboard and even sometimes the main board's a little more specialized, because I know what I'm going to expect.
Yeah.
So like
I'll put chills in, right? Even last minute when I'm like, oh, there's 2 burn players in mono red tonight here. I'm going to throw some chills in my sideboard.
And to that point, so the last 2 big events, Eternal Weekend and GP Richmond, were won by Miracles. We had a 51 player Legacy event last month. There were 0 Miracles decks in the room.
Crazy, dude.
So
it was right after that too.
It was a month after, but I definitely think we all have to tune our decks. I mean, Nick's deck, case in point, he had Warmth and he had Rule of Law in his sideboard, and you'll always see him running like a Rule of Law or something like his deck in his sideboard at FNMs and stuff. So I think we definitely have to adjust our decks for the local meta, and then we go more broad in terms of what our sideboard scope is outside of our meta.
Lately, I really haven't been playing a deck for more than a couple months, so I haven't actually had a consistent deck. Well, I had Grixis Delvers, and since that was canned with Deathrite Shaman, I haven't had what?
Rest in peace, Deathrite.
Yeah, seriously, it's like missing a good friend, man.
Oh,
it's like my best friend died.
Yeah,
but so I haven't had a deck that I've been really grinding for more than a few months. I switch off to some other stuff. So lately, I haven't really tuned any sideboard cards. So right now, the list that I'm playing for Grixis Control. I did net deck it. I changed 0 cards, and I'm playing it in the local, the Legacy League that we have. And then I took that exact same list to Vegas, and played in the side events. And so far, I've gotten, I've performed very poorly in both. But we'll see. We get to change our Legacy list here, and I think I'm gonna go back to Elves. So,
what about you, Nick? You got anything on that?
For the sideboard stuff, I just kind of would echo what you said, and just for our own meta, I have usually specific hate. But if I'm going to a GP, I'll keep it pretty broad because there will always be people who will play the tier deck, the Miracles, the Grixis Control. So you better be prepared.
And Dan's last question, save the best for last, as they say. If your deck was a desert, what desert would it be?
I mean, we're in Arizona, right? So Sonoran Desert, right? I'm thinking.
Maybe. Let's go with Sahara.
I'm gonna go with the Arctic.
Arctic desert.
The Arctic is the second largest desert.
Technically true.
Yeah.
On there, right? It's got a lot of ice.
That's weird, SB. That's a cop out.
It's not a cop-out, man. I'm trying to break the ice in my matchups, okay? So
It's a snow-covered land, man.
yeah, right?
Snow-covered land. All right. So, yeah, I mean, not like the Amonkhet Desert, you know?
No.
No? Okay. All right. So, I think actually he probably meant if your deck was a dessert.
Yeah, probably.
He just doesn't know how to spell. That's why he plays goblins.
Oh,
So,
jeez.
dude, so if my deck was a dessert, let's see, elves. That's if I was going to play elves and it was going to be a dessert, what would it be? I don't know, man. That's a hard question. It'd be something explosive, right? With a lot of like little moving parts. What would be explosive with moving parts for a dessert?
Maybe
like Pop Rocks
or Keebler elf cookies.
Keebler elf cookies. There you go.
Stuff with Pop Rocks.
I like Pop Rocks.
Yeah.
You know, I'll explode in some people's mouths with the
Are we still talking about magic?
Jeez.
It is a magic podcast. What about you, Nick? D&T, what is that?
It'd be boring and flavorless.
Yeah, it's got to be boring. It's got to be like what, French vanilla, I guess? I don't know.
Yeah, like French vanilla
Ice cream? Probably.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But like something that like
Slowly
isn't
kills you.
enjoyable, but kills you slowly.
Yeah, diabetes. So like it slowly kills you over time. It's, you know.
So D&T is the diabetes of magic decks?
I guess, yeah.
Jeez.
All right. What about you, SP?
No clue. We'll just go with like a bit.
Turbo Depths.
Turbo Depths.
What's Turbo Depths?
I don't know. Like what would
You
be
gotta
a
put a
suggestion?
It's
flavor
got to
on
be
that.
mint chocolate chip, right? You got the
Mint
green and the black. You got the green, and the black.
Okay.
Good. That's
you know
good.
what?
Yeah,
I like
mint
that.
chocolate chip.
Mint
Yeah.
chocolate chip. I'm gonna go with that.
All right. So there you go. That's if your deck was a desert,
Yep.
Yeah.
it would be mint chocolate chip.
Yep.
All right, and so I just want to give a quick shout out here. We got some help with our website from Lincoln Baxter from Baxter Bug and Top Decked. He helped us out, and you know, he was talking with Frankie and working with Frankie for the website stuff. So I want to give him a shout out. He's helped us out with some technical stuff. And want to talk about a little bit about Top Decked. It's a sweet app, dude. Frankie's really big into it. I have been a subscriber of it. It's awesome for deck lists. It's so easy to just like copy and paste stuff into it. And then now like he updated it so you can do like sample hands, and also it does like tournament reporting too, or not tournament reporting,
Pairings.
but,
Like it'll
pairings,
text you your pairings and your opponent, which seems insane.
Yeah, Frankie had posted this picture of him looking at his watch with his smartwatch with his pairings on there. So it's smartwatch compatible now too. So Lincoln's doing a lot of cool stuff there.
And he took the time. He took the time out of his day to help us out with our website.
Yeah,
It looks awesome too.
yeah. He actually helped me out with his list. Baxter's bug is what he calls it. It's like a bug control list. If you don't know what it is, if you go to like, I think it's buglands.com is the website there where he has information about it. But we went back and forth for a while, and I was like, what about this card, you know, and trying to improve it. And he was like, no, like I've tried that. Like he's a good knowledgeable Magic player too. He plays a weird archetype that, as far as I know, he's the only person that's done that. And I discovered that list actually a year ago at Vegas. I was there, came home, looked up lists, and saw him in like, I think it was like right below the top 16. I think he was in like
Top 32.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, cool guys. So shout out there. Thanks for helping out. I realized I didn't introduce myself.
We know who you are. You're Big Daddy Zach.
If you don't know who I am, again, my name is Zach Zent, and with us today we had Daniel Espinoza. You want to shout out anybody?
Shout out anybody.
Mom, maybe?
I'm gonna, no.
Dad?
No. I'm gonna shout out the crew from AZEM and all the great Legacy players out here. Major shout out to Nick for coming up tonight and hanging out with us with great tournament report. And I look forward to playing with everyone in 2019 and a lot more Legacy to come.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to before I forget. We have a Toys for Tots event at Phoenix Gaming Lounge on December 8th. And then we also have our Twitter, which just started up, so you can follow us at
Eternal Magic AZ.
Eternal Magic AZ, I think it is.
Let me see.
And then Nick, do you want to give any shout outs? And how about your mom? You want to shout out your mom? You're going to be a good boy?
No.
No? Okay.
No, I'll give a shout out though to Gary Wong, your guys' previous guest, because we were all chilling here practicing before we had masters. I know Espinoza and I were here, and I had to channel Gary Wong's sage advice since he's one of the top players probably in Arizona, and he was just saying play what you know, which is always a good adage and a good thing to keep in mind when it comes to legacy. So the night before, just kind of popped in my brain his voice, just play what you know. So
like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like Gary was with me through the tournament.
Just a force ghost of of Gary Wong showing up in your room.
Yeah, so that was helpful to choose the right deck, because then if I chose Grixis, round one would have been brutal.
Loved it if you played Grixis.
Would have been brutal.
Probably would have been a different turnout for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. We didn't have very much luck with Grixis control. I'm kind of pissed off at it right now.
I think, like we said, when it's a top deck, everyone kind of guns for it, and it's more known, so it makes it a little bit harder.
Maybe it's time to switch back to elves.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, dude, honestly, Zach, you were a master at elves. Like, I think that's the deck you just murder with.
So, wow, man, you say that, but
dust it off.
It takes a lot of practice. You can't really play a lot of other decks. It feels like if you're playing elves, you can't.
Just master a deck, man.
I don't know. I'm not. Commitment's hard, man. Commitment's hard. All right, so this has been
the Twitter. Yeah. The Twitter is Eternal Magic AZ.
Eternal Magic AZ.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So there we go. Eternal Magic AZ. Follow us on Twitter for all the updates. Look us up on Facebook. Just search for Arizona Eternal Magic. You can go to our website, azeternalmagic.com. You're probably already there if you're listening to this. And yeah, come out and support some Toys for Tots. It's again December 8th. $10 and a toy, or $20 and no toy. Doors open at 11, and tournament starts at 12.
I think we're going to try and stream that one. So if you can't make it out, definitely tune into our Twitch channel, and we will post that later. But either support us online by watching and subscribing to our channel, or showing up and playing.
If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can go ahead and just message SB directly and yell at him. No, I'm kidding. You can. We have our email address, which is going to be arizonaeternalmagic@gmail.com. So if you have questions for the podcast, comments, concerns, you can send it there. And I want to thank everyone for listening, and thank you, Nick Cowley, for being here and for your awesome tournament report. And we'll catch you guys in a couple weeks after Japan.
Yeah, sounds good. Later, guys.
Later. Thanks for having me.